I got a box, and it's not from Herb, and it's not as big as from Herb, but still very cool. Find out what's in it after the titles. Hey everybody, Anthony Dodge Maltrain Outside the American Outsider here with a mail call video. It's been a while since I've done a standard mail call video. I kind of stopped doing it. I replaced them with first impressions. But this one's kind of special, and there's nothing in here to run on its own. But anybody who knows this channel and pays attention to me knows I am a huge Beatle maniac, the greatest rock and roll band there ever was, bar none. And Hornby has released several Beatle related things, and it's one of the reasons I started buying 00 stock was to get some of the Beatle stuff because they don't make it in HO. They do make, I think Athern made some, or maybe Bachman made some Beatle album boxcars, but unfortunately they're hard to find, although I've been gifted one, and actually I've been gifted two. But anyhow, Hornby released the Yellow Submarine 30th anniversary Eurostar Javelin, and I bought that. That was actually the first 00 train I bought. And then they began releasing boxcars of the British albums, and I started collecting those. They released 4 a year over the last few years, and the last set was released really last year, but they never made it to America. And so I finally got tired of this and was going to buy them online myself, but the shipping charges from the UK by the eBay sellers were a little ridiculous. So I had my friend Andy, the HotDogPilot. I have bought some things for him, which he pays me back, and sent them over to the UK because the eBay sellers in the United States don't necessarily ship overseas, or they charge an exorbitant fee. Although I think with the price of shipping, it's exorbitant anyhow. So be that as it may, I'm going to open this up and just show you real quick what I got, because the last 4 are finally in my possession, and we'll talk a little bit about it. I'm not going to put the box over there and show it. I'll just pull up what I've got as we got them. So the first one is, I don't know if that will show up with the glare. It is a, I think these are reefer vans, refrigerator vans or whatever, small box cars. But this one has the double album Greatest Hits, Volume 1 and Volume 2, to Beatle fans, known as the Red Album, the Blue Album, in conjunction with the actual Beatles album, the eponymous The Beatles, which everybody calls the White Album. Okay, and then here we have their first 2 albums on one boxcar, and this is something I'm going to take a time out and rant about. They made an individual car for each of the albums, but then they stick the first 2 on one car. Dudes, we were going to buy it. Why stick 2 on one car when all the other albums had a single car to themselves? This was cheating. I think it's because they wanted to release 4 cars. They wanted to release just 4 cars, but they wanted to include the double album Greatest Hits. They didn't need to include these. No Beatle would have said, hey, why didn't you do the Greatest Hits albums as a wagon? You could have thrown those in superfluously or as an added run-on. So that's my rant, because I would really like these as separate. Anyhow, that leaves just Hard Day's Night, and I'll put pictures of these up, and Abbey Road. Those were the missing cars and albums. I now have all the cars from this series. Now they have released other Beatle related stuff. couple of years ago, they released a train with all the singles. 3 years ago, I think it is now, called The Singles from Liverpool. And it came with a Class 73 locomotive that had a picture of the Beatles on it, and then 2 coaches that had all the UK singles, including the reunion singles from 1994, Real Love and Free as a Bird. Not the singles released in the United States. And, you know, it was, for the price they charged for it, it was not truly worth the money. But I guess that's the problem with us Beatle fans. If we're into 2 hobbies, crossover hobbies, Beatles and trains, they can kind of get away with it because they know we're going to buy it. I did not buy the more recent one, which is a, in my opinion, ugly little steamer, little shunting steamer or something like that, with 2 or 3 boxcars that are the EPs, the 4-song singles, or EPs, extended play as they were. All right, but I am going to do something a little special with these. I'll get these out of the box and I'll set everything up and come back after this. All right. So here they are, the Beatle album Wagons. And I'm going to come back to another complaint about this car in a second. But from Please Please Me with the Beatles, Hard Day's Night, the Beatles for Sale, Help, Rubber Soul Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine, the White Album, Abbey Road, Let It Be, and the 2 double album greatest hits. Now, a couple of things to point out. Technically, I am running these in the order the albums were released, but Let It Be was actually recorded before Abbey Road. Let It Be was recorded in late 68, early 69, with the famous rooftop concert that ends the movie being filmed in January of 69. And Let It Be was recorded between June, was it May or June, and August of 69, and released in September of 69. It was the last album the Beatles recorded together. They put Let It Be on the shelf because they weren't happy with it. Eventually, 3 of the 4 Beatles, Paul being the abstainer, elected to bring in Phil Spector and let him mess with it, and Paul was not happy with it. There's a famous letter Paul wrote to Phil Spector, which led to eventually a version of the album called the Naked album of Let It Be, which was take off Phil Spector's added stuff to it. To be honest, some of the stuff Phil Spector added, I think, improved the songs. Some things, sounded better in the raw form. But anyhow, let's go back to this album up here. Because in typical, I hate to say it typical, but just with this, first of all, this needed to be 2 separate cars, and they made it 1, which is aggravating to all of us who are model train guys and collecting the Beatle wagons. I've talked to many people online that are upset about, when it was announced they were doing this, they were questioning why did they do that. That's because they only wanted to do 4 cars, and they wanted to do the double album as well, which I think was stupid. They could have skipped the double album, as I said. But the other thing they did wrong is that the other side of the car is the same as this. In other words, if I turn this car around, it has Please Please Me here and with the Beatles. And you go, well, that makes sense. Well, yeah, it makes sense if you're running your trains that way. If you want to run the trains with the albums in order this way, they don't line up. Because what they should have done was reversed it. So that Please Please Me here would be on the other side. So it just, if you want to see it, you have to run it from your right to your left if you want to see the albums in order. All right, well, if I'm going to run a train of the albums of the greatest rock and roll band in the world that came from the UK, then let's talk about maybe one of the greatest, most famous locomotives in the world that came from the UK to pull this, and that would be the American version of the Flying Scotsman. Yes, the cars are 00 scale, and this train is HO scale, but I thought it fitting. So we're going to put this in motion and catch it running. So be right back. And perhaps fitting that it's driving on a layout in Germany, because it was in Germany that the Beatles truly honed their skills and developed the sound that made them the greatest rock and roll band in the world. But there you can see on this side, because it's reversed, the two first albums are not in order. There it is, my Beatles album, boxcar, refrigerator car, whatever you want to call them. Set now complete from Hornby, with my little rants about how they did the first two albums on one car. Still very happy with it, and my Beatle brain is pleased to have the complete set along with the singles from Liverpool Train. The albums and the singles I'm happy with. I'm just not going to buy. I just think it's too cheap, cheaply made and too cheap looking, the EP Train they released last year. Before I go, I want to give out a special shout out and thanks to Andy, the HotDogPilot, who bought the last 4 cars for me. We kind of traded. I've been, he always talks about how I, got him these things. I'm just buying for him and he pays me back. It's not like I'm gifting this all to him. And so we just kind of did a trade. He gave me a list of stuff he wanted, and I sent him a list of stuff I wanted this time, because I have bought him a few things and sent over. But it was really nice of him to do that, along with the Mallard he got me recently at Getz. So really thank you, because the price that the sellers on eBay were charging to ship from the UK to the United States were just ridiculous. And looking at what you paid, it was less than the aggregate total it would have been from the other sellers combined to get shipped. So it worked out nicely. Also, you got them a little cheaper, because to order them in the United States, I would have had to pay $26.99 each plus shipping, and you got at least a couple of them for $21.99. So that was really nice. So thank you, Andy, for helping me finally complete this, because I have been trying to get these for a year. They've been out in the UK for a year, and they just haven't been in the Hornby US, nor have they been on eBay, because I have been looking all the time. But I finally, when Andy sent me his latest, can you get this for me? I was like, yeah, because I was just looking at them going, these are good prices on eBay, but the shipping's ridiculous. So I said, hey, Andy, could we trade this time and you get these for me, and then we'll work it. Either you order some more stuff, and he just kept ordering more stuff and keep trying to balance it out, and then, okay, how much was the shipping and the tax and everything included, and so I think we're square now. I don't mind if I'm a few pennies in the red. I don't mind being in the red at all in this regard. So thank you, Andy. So as usual, I took something that I could have done in 4 minutes and made it 20. I am who I am. So on that note, I'm going to say, by the way, speaking of the Beatles, if you have not seen, either on my channel or Joyce's channel, we've done several Beatles songs as train parodies, and our most recent one, the Abbey Road medley, Abbey Road Side 2, because Abbey Road was one of the new cars we got. Please check it out, leave a comment, support our insanity. A lot of people did see it, but there's a lot of people out there that I normally hear from that we didn't hear from, so check it out. And any of our other Beatle parodies, or any of our parody songs. So, until I see you again, I will say Auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, and happy trains. Take care, everybody.